Ladies and gentlemen, it's David Hall here, founder and chief executive of the Ideas Centre, and here to share with you some notes specifically for facilitators and focusing on the critical elements of the reversal technique for creative idea generation. Now, there's a separate video scribe that explains the technique in full detail, but just as a quick refresher, the easiest way to explain the technique is using graphical representation, I think. If you imagine that this zero here represents the way we normally do things around here, or the world of what is, we've got brilliant things happening at the top end of the scale, and we've got horrible things happening at the negative end of the scale. When we define a problem statement, and always remember that we are absolutely rubbish at problem statements, what we tend to do is define the problem as trying to make the situation better. We'd like to get way up that positive scale, but we can't because we've got mental blocks in the way that constrain us. So let's say the score on this better will be +2 on this x-axis. And what that will do is generate solutions that score +2, which effectively is continuous improvement. You will incrementally make the situation better. Ideally, we'd like to get above those mental blocks and get to, let's say, +20 as a problem statement. So the first step of the process is to supercharge that problem statement, to suspend all judgment to overcome the mental blocks and generate a +20 problem statement, which will be truly brilliant as an outcome. What we then do is reverse that problem statement. So it goes from +20 to -20. It needs to be equal and opposite. Horribly bad rather than brilliantly good. And this effectively is the -20 problem statement. We then brainstorm that, suspending all judgment again, because this is a strange place to be, generating a range of -20 quality solutions. We pick the best of those, which basically is the idea that most definitely will solve that -20 problem statement, and then identify the key -20 quality characteristics of that solution that make it work. There'll be a small number of these. It could be 2, it could be 3, seldom more than 4. Having got those -20 characteristics, we then reverse those characteristics so they become +20 characteristics. And all we have to do then is to find a solution that has those same +20 characteristics. And that, of course, by definition, will be a +20 solution that will solve our supercharged +20 problem statement. Now, from a facilitation point of view, there are lots of steps in the process, and each one of these is critical. With the majority of creative problem-solving techniques, there are 1 or 2 critical steps, but within the reversal technique, there are many, many of them, 7 or 8. The trick is to follow the logic. If each step is followed absolutely correctly, it simply must work. If you just look at the graphical representation, this is maths, for goodness sake. It's almost science. This cannot fail if you follow the rules. The trick is not to run too far ahead of yourself and just worry about the step that you're operating. If you get that one step that you're working on now correct, it simply must work. Critically important is that the facilitator must make sure that every step is completed at + or -20. Maintain those extremes. There is a tendency to drift towards + or -2. In which case you'll end up with more of the same as a solution, which effectively is going to be continuous improvement, incrementally making the world better, but not delivering the breakthrough that you're looking for creativity. So for example, if you have a -20 solution and you look for the characteristics of it, and maybe it's horrific, which is a -20 characteristic, the reverse of that is not simply good. Good is a +2 characteristic. So you reverse -20 to +2. What we need is something that might be truly awesome. If you reverse horrific and end up with truly awesome, you've gone from -20 to +20. You will be using language the like of which you don't normally use within the corporate world. And within every single one of these steps, you want to test it as the facilitator. Are you sitting at the required -20 level, or maybe at the other end of the scale and you're at +20? You need to avoid the mediocre, continuous improvement middle ground. The final step is also key, clearly, converting the +20 characteristics to a +20 solution. And my top tip is there is a possible intermediate step you can introduce, which is simply finding an initiative in the real world that has those +20 characteristics. Don't worry about the organizational context, just look across the entire world and all aspects of it and see if you can think of any initiative that has those +20 characteristics. If you can find something, you can simply use that as a stepping stone, adapting that solution in the real world as a metaphor for something in the organization in question. This is a really elegant technique, but it really does call upon the facilitator to control every single one of those critical steps within the process.